Portland, Oregon versus Vancouver, Washington. If you're trying to decide between the two, the first thing most people look at is taxes. But it's not the whole story. The real decision usually comes down to three things: how much you want to spend, what kind of lifestyle you want, and how much commuting you are willing to tolerate. So in this video, I'm breaking down the biggest pros and cons of living on each side of the river. We're going to cover taxes, cost of living, how the metro area is laid out, and which areas tend to fit different lifestyles best. And if you're planning to move anywhere in the Portland metro area and want help figuring out which side of the river, neighborhood, or suburb fits you best, reach out. I help people relocate here all the time, and I'm always happy to be a resource. Now let's start with the thing that everybody asks about first: taxes. The biggest financial advantage in Vancouver is simple. Washington does not have a state income tax. Oregon does. That alone is enough to get a lot of buyers to at least consider Vancouver, especially if they are relocating from out of state and comparing monthly numbers closely. On the other hand, Oregon does not have sales tax while Washington does. So the trade-off is pretty clear. In Vancouver, you keep more of your paycheck, but you pay sales tax when you shop. In Portland, you lose more to state income tax, but you are not paying sales tax every time you buy any goods in the grocery store. That is why some people love living in Vancouver but still cross onto Oregon to purchase larger items. They like the no income tax side of the equation, but they also want to avoid paying sales tax when they can. Property taxes are another piece people ask about. They vary depending on where you are, but in general, this is something you want to compare by specific city and county, not just by state, because the numbers can shift depending on the exact area. Now, beyond taxes, you also need to understand how the Portland Metro is really set up, because Portland Metro is not just Portland. It includes parts of both Oregon and Washington. And that is where a lot of people get confused. On the Washington side, you have Clark County. That includes Vancouver, Camas, Oswego, and Richfield, along with areas like Salmon Creek, Hazeldale, Orchards, and Fisher's Landing. On the Oregon side, the main counties people usually look at are Multnomah County, Clackamas County, and Washington County. Multnomah County includes Portland, Gresham, Troutdale. Clackamas County includes places like Happy Valley, Lake Oswego, Westland, Oregon City, Wilsonville, and Milwaukee. And Washington County covers Beaverton, Hillsboro, Tualatin, Sherwood, and Aloha. So when people say they're moving to Portland, they may not actually mean the city of Portland. A lot of the time, they are really talking about the greater metro area and trying to figure out which side fits them best. Now let's talk about Vancouver first. One of the biggest reasons people choose Vancouver is that it often feels more practical. You can get newer housing in many areas, more of a suburban feel, and of course, no state income tax is a huge draw. Areas like Camas, Richfield are especially popular for people who want strong schools and cleaner suburban environment, in neighborhoods that feel a little more removed from the busier urban core. Fisher's Landing is another area people tend to like because it is convenient and established. Downtown Vancouver and the waterfront have also become much more attractive. The newer waterfront area, restaurants, condos, and trails have made that part of Vancouver much more desirable than a lot of people expect. Now, the downside to Vancouver is the commute. This is where people can get overly optimistic. If you live in Vancouver but work in Portland, especially if you are crossing the river during peak hours, that drive can get old really fast. So yes, you may save money on income tax, but you need to ask yourself whether that saving is worth the daily bridge traffic. That brings us to Portland and the Oregon side. Portland's biggest advantage is lifestyle. If you want more walkability, more established neighborhoods, more restaurants, more character, and more city energy, Portland is going to feel more interesting to a lot of people. Portland also gives you more variety in neighborhood feel. You have areas that are more urban, more historic, more residential, more artsy, and more connected by transit. If that matters to you, Portland usually wins over Vancouver. But Portland also has trade-offs. Oregon's state income tax is a real factor. And depending on the part of Portland, you may also be dealing with more visible urban challenges, older housing, smaller lots, and in some areas, more concerns around homelessness and street activity. That does not mean that all of Portland feels the same, because it absolutely does not. Portland is made up of several different sections, and each one has a very different feel. You have North Portland, Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, Southwest, and South Portland. Each part has its own personality, price points, and pros and cons. For example, a lot of people coming into town for the first time see certain areas near the airport or major freeway corridors and assume that all of Portland feels this way, but it doesn't. Some of those areas show a rougher first impression than the neighborhoods buyers usually end up choosing. When people look outside of Portland proper, but still want Oregon, a lot of them end up being drawn to places like Happy Valley, Lake Oswego, Westland, Tualatin, Sherwood, Beaverton, and Hillsboro. Happy Valley is popular for newer homes and a suburban feel. Lake Oswego is one of the more sought after higher-end areas because of its location, schools, and overall feel. Westland is popular for families who want a strong residential feel. Beaverton and Hillsboro are especially attractive for buyers who want access to major employers on the west side, including the tech corridor. Tualatin and Sherwood tend to appeal to people who want a quieter suburban lifestyle but still want to stay connected to the metro. So really, the Portland versus Vancouver conversation is not just city versus city. It's also urban versus suburban, Oregon taxes versus Washington taxes, and convenience versus commute. If you want a more city-centered lifestyle with more character, more walkability, and more doing and going around you, Portland usually makes more sense. If you want more suburban living, no state income tax, and in many cases newer neighborhoods, Vancouver offer becomes the better fit. Neither one is automatically better. It really depends on how you would like to live. If you were simplifying it, I'd say this: choose Portland if lifestyle, neighborhood character, and city access matters most. Choose Vancouver if saving on state income tax and getting a more suburban setup matter most. And if you're planning to live in Vancouver and work in Portland, make sure you are being honest with yourself about that commute, because that is where a lot of people realize the trade-off is bigger than they expected. And if you want to know more about Portland neighborhoods, check out this video.